Hello, this is another Warhammer Fantasy Battles battle report for my blog, Wargames Review. This is a game that I had with my Bretonnian army versus my brother-in-law's Warriors of Chaos army. This is at the 1500 point level. I did want to point out a couple things right up front. One is that we are still using the 7th edition rules and that neither of us own an 8th edition rulebook yet, and this was not at a gaming club, it was down in my basement. However, to get in the 8th edition feel, we did decide to use the 8th edition percentages for army selection. So we'll be using, a minimum of 25% core, maximum of 50% special, so on and so forth. I did want to mention here as well that we do have a time limit in place on this game, so it's only going to go through about 4 turns, so just fair warning. It may not be the most exciting game in the world, but maybe you can glean something from it. This is my opponent's army, moving from his right to his left, my left to my right. That first block on your left is Chaos Marauders on foot from the old Battle Masters game. Next are 5 Mounted Marauders. They have the mark of, I want to say Slanesh, the one where you're immune to panic and fear and terror and that kind of stuff. Then there's a block of 10 Chaos Warriors. In that block, you'll see that shiny little figure that's just real skinny. That's Hero. That's actually his general. He'll replace it with an elf model later on. He didn't have the correct model with him at the time. And then there's a block that has Chaos Knights, and there's a level 2 sorcerer on the far left there. Next is the Hell Cannon, being proxied by the old Chaos Dwarf cannon. And then way over here on the far right, there are another group of marauders on horseback. There's a building behind them. Those sticks on the far right are a river. I couldn't find the correct river, sorry. So my side of the board, and this would be from my left to my right looking at the game, although I did come around to the other side for the sake of taking pictures. There's some skirmishing bowmen way over there by the hill. There's mounted yeomen out front. Right behind them is a block of Knights Errant. In the block of Knight Errant is my general. He's the guy closest to us. It's kind of hard to see him because they're not painted, but he's the guy with antler horns. And then continuing on, there's a block of Knights of the Realm, and my BSB is in there. That's the one with mostly blue horses with one yellow horse. And then next to them is the Grail Relic. Attached to them is a level 1 damsel. Again, proxy model there. There's a house, and then 4 Pegasus Knights off to the side. And then the house in the foreground, that's kind of a tall, skinny one, that counts as impassable terrain. So I pray for the blessing. Warriors of Chaos take first turn. And you'll see there's just some general moving up, nothing too fancy here. Moving on to my turn, this game quickly turns into a game of just clever positioning, who's going to get the charge, those sorts of things. Right in the middle there, I'm pushing the Grail Relic right up as fast as they'll go. Obviously, I want the Knights, the Chaos Knights to charge them and get stuck in. He knows that, obviously. We've played before, so he's probably going to try to avoid him because he doesn't want to get stuck in the tar pit. Yeomen are moving over to, be able to flank or bait and flee, maybe do some shooting. And then I want to get the Errants up on the hill so they had good line of sight. And I'm keeping the BSB with the Knights of the Realm in reserve. I did move my BSB to the right side of that unit to provide support. Excuse me. Had a little hiccup there. And then my sorcerer came out of the unit, is hiding behind that impassable terrain. I made a big mistake with her because I left line of sight open. I was thinking stay off to the side so you can cast spells, but I left line of sight open to those marauders on horseback. And then the Pegasus Knights are going around to the side to get a flank on them depending on what they do. In his turn, the marauders on horseback do charge the damsel, and I thought it over for a long time, but I thought after kind of eyeballing it, remember this is 7th edition rules, we can't pre-measure, I thought there was about a 50-50 chance they were in charge range. It turns out they were, by like a quarter inch, but she fled, so not off table yet, but I hope she can rally. The Chaos Knights are actually backing up at this point to get a better look at things, while the Marauders on horseback are pushing ahead. Actually, they charged my mounted yeoman, who decided to flee the charge. And then in the magic phase, he's moved his sorcerer kind of right into the middle of my ranks here, so he can cast that damage radius type spell. He had the Lore of Death. That didn't go off or do anything substantial, but he did get the Drain Life one, where one spell comes off, or one, I'm sorry, wound comes off my general and goes on the sorcerer. So what you see there is, over on the left, my general's got a little yellow card with an axe showing. That means a wound. And he has a yellow card with no axe showing. That means he's gained a wound. And this is the beginning of my turn. First, just a shot showing that my level 1 did rally. My mounted yeomen also rally. My Pegasus Knights charge the Marauders on horseback in the flank. And otherwise, I'm just kind of still playing that kind of who's going to charge who type game. And what I decide to do, I realize it's a bit of a risk. I reposition my big block of Knights Errant with the General. And what I'm going to do is try to take out one of those two units on the far left. Either the Marauders on horseback or the Marauders on foot, swing around behind his line. Or if he doesn't position something quite right, I may be able to get a flank charge on something else. And what I'm doing with the Knights of the Realm, the blue horses, is basically putting them up as a sacrificial lamb for his Chaos Knights, knowing that he might take the bait and charge me. I'll hold, maybe they'll get stuck for a turn or two, but they'll be out of position to do much else for the rest of the game, is kind of the hope. And with that in mind, I move the BSB out of the unit and towards the bottom of the screen. He is in a position to charge the Chaos Sorcerer if the Chaos Sorcerer doesn't move. Over in the battle between the Pegasus Knights and the Marauders on horseback, I killed 3 of them. I didn't take any wounds in return. That coin there in the foreground is showing that my sorceress did get Mistress of the Marsh off on them, so they'll be fleeing at half their normal flee move. And they do break, and because they're going at half their normal flee move, they do get run down. Okay, the beginning of his turn. In this turn, the Hell Cannon actually it started on the right of the screen, failed its leadership test, so it has to frenzy rampage towards the nearest enemy, and it came this close to my Pegasus Knights. It actually stopped just over an inch away from them, which would have been a pretty devastating charge. And then you can see what happened here on the far left. He charged his Marauders on foot and Marauder Horsemen into my Yeoman, and I decided to hold. I kind of want to keep him in that position. I realize the Yeoman will die, but at this point I don't really care because they're keeping those 2 units tied up. I did kill 2 of his Marauders on horseback somehow. I think it was maybe with a stand and shoot, or maybe the bowman shot in a previous turn. I don't remember. And then he took the bait that I set up and charged the Chaos Knights into my Knights of the Realm. And you'll see there I rolled an 11 for my fear test. So the only way I'm going to be hitting the Chaos Knights is on 6s this turn. Fortunately, I had equal unit strength with them, so I didn't have to do the auto flee. And then in the ensuing combat, he kills 4 of the 6. I mean, no real surprise there. And runs them down and surges straight forward. And yes, on the far right of that picture, you do see one evil Bretonnian who betrayed his brethren and moved over to Chaos. And just out of time here, so we'll see what happens in the next battle report.